For you, what were some of the challenges in the beginning that maybe didn't come from him having autism, but maybe just came from you having ADHD?
Oh, that's a really great question.
Play the song again for no reason. Let me see it.
Let
What's
me get
good, family? What's good, Jace?
What's good, Chris. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Dope, dope. Let me make sure I can hear you okay. There we go, man. How you doing? How you feeling, man?
I'm good, man. It's good. It's good to be in the building, man. You
Man, I'm glad
know?
you happened. I know we've been our first chat, man. It was just dope getting to talk, but man, today we're gonna go a lot deeper. So I'm excited. I saved a lot of my questions for today just because I didn't want to give you too much. But today, man, I really wanted to jump into, man, just having ADHD by itself, Chris, is just already something that's just crazy hard by itself. But then just adding, like, trying to parent into that, I could just only imagine. I'm not there at that walk in my life yet. So today, I definitely want to jump into how that happens. And, how you're able to navigate that. But before, man, I just want to kind of introduce yourself, man. Kind of tell the crowd who you are, what you do, why we're here today.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. I'm just happy to be here, bro. My name is Chris Redding. Um, Artist, recording artist, producer, writer, the whole nine. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
And yeah, man, you and a father. So you mentioned parenting. You know, parenting is already hard enough as it is, and to add the neurodivergent on top of that, it's just like
that's
you're
a
juggling
different
a
ball
lot.
game.
To
Yeah,
be ADHD and just kind of like with navigating in the world, it's like it's one thing, but then when you also are parenting, you really have to know how to multitask. So
yeah,
but it's been a blessing. Like it's been a learning experience for me. It's been something that has been just truly rewarding.
mhm,
And I documented it, man, in this album.
yeah,
I felt that this was something like a story that was untold, and we hear a lot about parenting and what it means, and there's no manual on it. But to be a neurodivergent father on top of that, and to really like study your son and his energy, and really go back and see yourself in that process, man, it's just truly amazing. So I'm here, man. The new release of my album, Visions of Sounds, it's going crazy now on all streaming platforms, and
heck
yeah,
yeah.
we here.
Man, and I appreciate you, coming on, man, and just even with that album when I took a listen, like I always, want to listen before and do, like that's a work album for sure. Like every single day, like that's just it's hard to find music that has talking in it and like you can work with because like some music
Yeah.
is just so like abrupt and it's just the but that music is just kind of it's real cool, man. So kind of walk me through before we jump into the just the big conversational topic of parenting and ADHD. For you, walk me through like where how this came from an idea out of your head, like kind of the steps for that, and like actually, as we ADHDers have all these ideas and some of them don't happen, like how did this, start, get out of your head and like you saw it all the way through. Like walk me through that before we jump in.
Yeah, it's funny because for a while, like I kind of stepped away from music. When I became a father, I was just really, wanted to spend time with the kids, and really just take in, what this experience was. It was very new for me. And, I also, do some things in tech. And so I was
Mhm.
doing that, and like, just focused full time dad, kind of stepped away from the art a little bit. And then when I started to notice like my son's love for music, and it just reminded me of, when I fell in love with music.
Mhm.
And I started a project, man, where I built the studio in my house.
I know I
And,
saw.
I really wanted to make a space, almost like a sensory room for
Mm,
my son as well, where we can listen to music and just vibe out. And it turned into, I know I wanted to represent my son in some sort of way, because there's just not a lot of education about, first of all, neurodivergence, but autism specifically. Growing up in the early 2000s and in the 90s, even there was like not a lot of information on autism, sensory therapy, all of these different things. But
Mm,
now we're becoming more of a community, and people are becoming more aware of what it means, and they're noticing it's more of the social elements that and social challenges rather than neurological. So I began to just really wanted to communicate with my son, and this was a communication album. It turned into like, us listening to beats, creating beats together, and just vibing out.
wow.
And it turned into like and I noticed it started to make a shift with like a communication shift. Like he started to respond in certain ways and starting to react um, with like vocal stimming, which is a
Mhm.
huge part of people's with autism, a trait. And vocal stimming is basically vibrational sounds that they make to express themselves,
Mm,
to express emotion. And so this, my
right.
son is nonverbal, by the way, and this was huge for me because I got a chance to not only experience musically and sonically, but also just on a communication level with him, what this felt like, what this sound like, what it looked like. So I talked about
Mm,
in the album, and and in some other interviews. So I am diagnosed with ADHD, but I also have
mm.
synesthesia traits as well. So it's
You
that
said synesthesia?
synesthesia. Yeah,
Mm,
synesthesia is it's a it's sort of when you see sounds, you can see
oh,
them
wow.
in visual elements. I see colors,
Oh, wow.
flashes of light. And so for
Mm,
me, the musical experiences, I really zone out and I really like just take it in, like the energy,
mm.
the colors, the vibrations. It's just it's a full on experience for me. And I noticed that my son is the same way. So that's what the album is all about: visions of sounds.
Man, dude, man, and that's so crazy. And I just love how you were able to bring that to life and be able to connect with them. Because a lot of times I hear, again, I'm not a dad, but I hear so many people who are about to start parenthood and like, when they have kids who have certain disabilities or certain challenges, their biggest thing is, especially when it's something that's, whether it's personality or it's mental, their biggest thing is finding a common ground. Especially you spend so much time having the help, having the, protect, but like having something like this, having this common ground so early, how do you
Mhm.
kind of um weigh that in with how your relationship has been now that you don't have to spend all your whole, because a lot of times people just spend their whole day saying don't do that, don't do this, or oh, trying to protect them from whatever the case may be, but you get to spend
Right.
a lot of time actually connecting. So like kind of talk about that, like talk about how that actually helps you, when it comes to raising, when it comes to everything else, but just how that relationship, has grown since the album has dropped and even, beforehand.
Yeah, communication is all about, an understanding, right? Understanding someone, understanding their intentions, understanding where they're coming from, and that's why we communicate, to get that understanding, and communication. I've learned that it comes in many different forms. It's not just verbal communications, also physical. There's vibrational communications.
Mm,
There's so many different communications on the different levels, and for what it means for me, early on in our, my wife and I, like early on in our, just while raising our son, we noticed some things, some autism traits, and for a long time, Christian would um, struggle with certain things, like struggle with making eye contact. He would struggle with um, just saying certain words. In the beginning, he did say a few words, and then he regressed. What they call is regression, where they stop saying certain words. And so we noticed these things, and we were very like attentive very early on, and it felt like a loss at first. It felt like, oh man, like what's happening, like I'm losing communication with my son. and it felt, it was sad. It felt like, this was something that was happening, and we didn't know what to do. But once we got into things like ABA therapy, we got a lot of support in the autism community. Also speech therapy, all of these different resources that we were introduced to. It helped, it gave us hope first and foremost, and then it really challenged us to look at it differently. Everything kind of flipped upside down as far as, this is the end. Like, this is, he's only going to be able to communicate at this level. And then it started to flip into, let us go to his world and understand him and how he communicates, what he's trying to say. And music was definitely a vehicle that allowed that to happen on so many levels. You know, just from communicating his emotion, his mood, to just, just experiencing it in the way that he does. It was such a groundbreaking thing, and it inspired me because, and it made me remember myself, as an ADHD kid, had a lot of energy, hyperactivity, like, and couldn't sit still in the classroom, beating on the desk, making music. It made me go back to that place and space and understand, like, yeah, like, I get it. There's a rhythm inside. There's a message inside. There's something that you want to say. There's something that you want to communicate. And really experiencing that with him is just, it's just been just phenomenal, So
Man, and I can only imagine because again, I'm not a dad, but I can only imagine. I'm a heartthrob. I'm a lover. So with people, most people on the spectrum, most people that are neurodivergent, we do have that thing where we just feel things differently than most
right,
people. Where
right,
everything
right,
is more
right.
intense. So I'm not a dad yet, but that's one of the reasons I'm a little scared because I know I'm all in on everything that I do,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's like, man, I couldn't imagine any. I just couldn't imagine, someone coming in between. So I mean that's dope. But one thing that kind of always touches me when I hear people talking about the ways, the positive ways that they're able to raise and work with kids on the spectrum and things of that nature, is whenever I hear you guys making such an effort to come find a common ground and come on their level, I think about the people who don't, and I think about the people who do the opposite, and I think about when I was younger, where it seems like teaching is the only profession that if you're bad at it, your clients get in trouble. Like, if you're not resonating with them, it seems like the teacher should be blamed, but usually as a kid, we were blamed. So if they were too boring, it's our fault, right? We have to figure out how to get to their word instead of them just trying to, make it, for us. So I love that you guys do that. For you, I mean, kind of walk me through so you, again, you have ADHD, so you have to be a parent. So for you, what are the challenges that you faced? Like, it seemed like you kind of found a groove in one way or another, especially with finding the common ground with the music. But what are some of the challenges that you faced
Oh, that's a really great question. Yeah, like, really just being able to focus on one thing. A trait of ADHD is, like, obviously, you have this mindset of, like, you want to do multiple things at once. You feel like you can do it. You have the energy to do it, and it's just timing. Sometimes, like, it doesn't always line up as it should.
right?
um so for me, one of the challenges was, I always knew that I wanted to return to music. I was waiting for that inspiration because I had got to the point where I was losing inspiration, and I didn't feel inspired.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just really inspired to be a dad, and really inspired to just, go down that journey. And for me, it was, balancing, all right, when do I go cut that mode on or off, and turn the artist mode on, and, like, just really differentiating between that time.
Right.
And I think what really helped is, like, merging the two. I always joke with people. I say, the thing about ADHD, yes, a lot of people see it as a superpower. You can do all of these different things, but one of the things they don't talk about is the crash. Me and you were talking about that.
Yeah.
And that's when everything feels like it's just bleeding into each other and merging all. But this is the one thing I would say I think worked perfectly. I had to really um just take a moment and realize, like, man, I really have everything that I have it right here in front of me. I have the studio here in the house. When my son is getting overstimulated and wife needs a break, I take him to the studio. We listen to beats. Like, he comes, he sits right in my lap, and he's like playing on the keys, and like it just turns into that moment of like, oh yeah, like this just seamlessly fits. And I think I was overthinking it in the beginning, like, how can I set that time aside to be creative and to like then, spend time with the kids and just kind of trying to keep things separate. But this is the one thing that just kind of blends together as like a symphony. When I bring him in the studio, it's like a sensory room for him. It's a creative space for me, and it's a time away for the wife, and
I got free
Christian's
from one
brother.
stove. That's amazing.
So it all just kind of blends. But
Dude,
yeah, man, it's cool.
dude, like I can't wait because that's and I love that you talked about blending because that's just something I struggle with as an artist myself. Just I feel like most artists when we first are trying to break away or when we're first getting into the actual industry, like we're trying to figure out what we're going to do, like how we're going to present ourselves. We know who we are, all the things that we have to offer, but what's the it's all about what's the word it's on the tip of my tongue, but it's basically how you present yourself, like how you're displayed, how you're perceived to the audience. And it's
Yeah,
like, we always want to show them one side of us, but like you said, I think it's best to just give it your all, just be you. There is no
yeah. I
version of
mean,
you. You're a musician, so I love that.
absolutely. I mean, we definitely move into a place I think, in music where it's just honesty, like a place of honesty. People are being
Yes,
real about their battles. They're being real about, their life and things that they're up against. Because what the beauty is in that is that there's nothing unique. Like, there's always someone that is dealing with the same thing that you're dealing with. And I think for a long time, at least for myself, the thing was all about being different. I want to be different. I want to be the best,
yeah,
stand out. But there's beauty in understanding our similarities and things that we are, embracing those things, and things that we can connect over. I've built such a really close knit community with just single moms, single dads with kids with autism,
oh wow,
just building community. Parents with autism, that are dealing with this, giving them resources. And one thing I want to say is that in the African American community, uh, diagnoses are there's a huge issue with African Americans being underdiagnosed,
hmm
and that's a huge issue because when you receive a diagnosis, you have access to a lot of different resources that will help you.
yeah,
And we don't want to make things harder, right? We want to make things more smoother. Like, one thing that people don't know is that when you have a diagnosis, like a neurodivergent diagnosis, ADHD, autism, and you're a student, you get more time on test. You get a lot of resources that you wouldn't have if you didn't have that diagnosis. So there's a lot of different things. There's a lot of my son Christian, there's access to certain things in healthcare that he gets. So I mean, it's very important that we get diagnosed and get rid of the stigmas. And that's also an objective of this album, is to really eliminate those stigmas of being diagnosed and say, you know what, it's okay that you are neurodivergent. That just makes you, it makes you stand out. It makes you different, and you are a different thinker. You see the world in a different way, and that's okay.
yeah, yeah, man. And I think that's getting diagnosed, I think that's a big reason for this podcast, a big reason for a lot of the things I'm doing in the neurodivergent community, because that is something we do get underdiagnosed for so many different reasons. Maybe it could be the doctor, missing out, which I think is less likely, but usually it's just because usually our parents, sometimes I find in the community, in our community, that parents might take it offensive. If a doctor says, your kid has this, and you feel like they're insulting the kid, and it's like, no, like labeling them this is the one label that they need if they're going to get some help. But I think, to even add on what you said, like a big reason why getting diagnosed is important, just so you know and you can be aware and you can help others treat you better. Just because if you don't know that you have that, a lot of guys who are sensitive, they just get told, oh, if you're sensitive, you're not a guy, or whatever they say.
Yeah.
But like a lot of people on the spectrum are like a lot more sensitive, just because we feel things different. We have that rejection sensitivity dysphoria, and there's you say, oh, I don't like your shoes today, and it's like you won't see me the rest of the day. So it's like you
Yeah.
really have to be
Yeah.
conscious of that, just so you can help people, give them the tools to treat you better. Because if they know you have that and then they still treat you the same, okay, whatever. But maybe if people know that, you have a little, you got a little something going on, maybe they might treat you a little bit better. So that's huge, man, for you. And when did you say you were diagnosed?
I was diagnosed at around, I think it was around 13 or 14.
Okay.
So, fairly young. And I remember getting the diagnosis. Like, I remember the test, like, they play the sounds in your ear. Like, dude, tell me when you hear the sound. And it feels like a hearing test almost. So, like, they'll show you, so tell me what you see. And, the whole time I remember just thinking, like, I want to ace this test because I don't want people to think there's something wrong with me. But there's no pass or fail on those tests. It's just, like how you see things. It's literally like how do you see things? What do you see? I remember there were some pictures that they showed, and it was just like, oh, I see this image, and da 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 da. And a lot of people don't understand that ADHD sometimes is like an expansion to you, like the imagination. A lot of creators, a lot of successful people have ADHD, have autism. There's a lot of amazing people that are neurodivergent. But at the same time, it's not to say like only those people are, that are super successful are neurodivergent either. I think sometimes we can put like, label it as a superpower, but we're still human. We still feel things. We still, have emotions, and we, experience burnout. Probably in some cases more extreme than others. And we need the time to, take breaks, to reflect on things, and really create an environment that is, just that's healthy for us. So
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, like I said, just getting diagnosed is just, I think it's just super duper important, again, for so many reasons. But for you, like, I know going back to music, it's so like how for me, like, ADHD, music has helped me so much with ADHD, just helped me so much with just everything that comes with it. Like, a lot of depression comes with ADHD and things like that. When you, especially if you, realize very late, become self-aware very late, and just a big old domino effect. But like for you, I want to like music is so crazy when it comes to the sensory aspect of it, where you can feel different things and they can get you through the day, or sometimes a song can even make you sad. Kind of talk to me about how, like you said, you can feel different things. Music is an experience for you. Kind of walk me through how that experience feels, like kind of from start to finish when you're, right from the beat to the, in the studio.
from the perspective of, the album, it started out, obviously as an idea. I wanted to create an album that uh is centered around my son and his experience, and kind of like, in dedication and inspiration of him. And I was very excited, like most ADH doers. Like, I was really, excited and pumped, staying up all night, like just like going in, like really high energy. And then towards the middle of the project, I just got hit with this anxiety. So I
Mm,
have an anxiety disorder as well. So like anxiety is one of those things that, anything can trigger it, and it starts to feel like,
it's crippling.
just, yeah, just like fear, worry, doubt, all
Yeah.
in one. So I got hit with that huge, and I really started at that moment. I started to actually feel like the embodiment of like some of symptoms of autism, and I started to feel very overstimulated. Feel like the walls were closing in. Start feeling like just really anxious, nervous. And so my son, he does something we call the Superman, where he stretches out, lays on the floor because he's literally overstimulated. And when when you're overstimulated, basically it's just like the senses are kind of like doing their own thing, and like you are just you just kind of want to like kind of tense up, lock up. And I was feeling that, and I just felt like, oh man, like I'm becoming this project. I'm becoming like my son, and I'm feeling it. And I'm sure that it was mostly like all in my head, but it felt so real, and it felt like really in the moment, and it really helped me to overcome a lot of that anxiety, overcome that fear, by keep pursuing the album, because it felt like midway, like turn around, like don't stop, just kind of shut it down. And but at that point, that's when I knew I had to go harder and I had to finish it. So it was about an 8 month project.
Wow.
And after that, we submitted it for a Grammy, and it got Grammy considered. And we had some amazing people to be a part of it. Um, People like Mechanism, who was actually studying Mechanism, who was part of the album, is actually studying she's actually studying music therapy and the senses as they pertain to music. We had an outstanding violinist, Michelle Jones. We also had Double A, who's Grammy Award winning producer, Carl Rubin, who's Grammy Award winning producer, James New Soul. We had just so many great artists and musicians be a part of this experience, and it was just phenomenal, man. The result was phenomenal, and I'm so glad that I persevered. I'm so glad that I went for it with the idea, because now there's something that exists in the world that didn't exist before, and there's a conversation, and hopefully it will spark more conversations around the world to understand autism, to understand neurodivergence, to embrace it, to celebrate it. So that's what it means for me.
That's huge. Yeah, I mean, and that's another goal with the podcast, man, is bringing this conversation, these type of conversations into spaces that usually don't talk about them, So eventually, with our other podcasts, we'll be doing sports and all type of things and still trying to work ADHD in there, because a lot of people look at it as like, an excuse. So a lot of people get like, but there is, so like you said, it's just bad to generalize anything or box anybody in anything, because there's bad people and there's good people and there's people trying to be good. There's just so many different people. But when it comes to ADHD, I just feel like, feel like you could probably agree. Like the point of getting a diagnosis isn't to say, oh, now I have this thing that means I get to treat everybody the way I want to. I get to just not finish any work. I get to do what I want. It's now I know one of the forces that's stopping me. Like a lot of us live through life and never even like we have roadblocks that we never even get to see. We don't even know about. There's different maybe disorders people don't even know of yet, but it's just
Right.
about to face one of your demons in the face and know what they are and know how they tick and be able to attack them. Right. I like to say it's not having screws loose, it's having extra screws and just being able to put them in the right places and use them. But
Yeah.
that's just one thing I wanted to make sure was just said out loud, just because I get sick of people. There's just a big community of people who just think that ADHD is not real. It's just something that people make up. Everyone, is a little
Oh no,
tired
it's definitely
of
real. It's definitely
it. It's
real.
it's a
Yeah.
crazy thing to hear, because it's not, if people deduce it just to laziness or just deduce it down to not being able to focus, then that's the whole U.S. So it's like you can't really deduce it to two things. But for you,
Yeah.
what do you
We
think
we
are?
live in we live in a society today that's like, it's really hard to maintain focus, and
Yeah,
because of social media and all these other things. But Yeah, ADHD is definitely it's a real thing, and it's something that I think now people can understand more because of the distractions that do exist. But yeah, I totally
Yeah,
get it.
that's something that's I always have a that's just a crazy thing. But even with a lot of the misconceptions, like I made a post talking about, I do a lot of business coaching. A lot of my clients do have ADHD just because I mean I can coach anyone who has a business, but it's just a lot. I usually go after them just because when I was trying to come up in business and I had coaches who didn't have ADHD or weren't just aware of it, they can't coach you. Like they don't understand why this doesn't work. They don't understand why you don't get this, and they think you're being lazy and they think you're not trying, and they give up on you. So
Right, right.
that was a big reason why I wanted to get into it from the first place. Because if your coach doesn't understand what you have, then they're not going to be able to work with you. But even
Right.
past that, like a lot of someone said that, oh, that's so misleading. You're gonna you think that it's hard. You like I made a post that said it's a little challenging if you're on the spectrum and you're trying to do a business. She's like, no, that's misleading. People on the spectrum have it super easy, and I'm like, that's dangerous to go anywhere saying we
Yeah.
have anything easy. So like
No, no, no way, no way. Yeah,
definitely
man.
need to get some education out there. But for you, what do you think are the traits that people don't really so some traits that affect you from ADHD that people don't really talk about as much? Like some not popular traits that maybe affect your day to day.
Definitely, the high anxiety, I think is something that I think goes hand in hand with ADHD because you get it starts off as like that adrenaline, that high energy, and then not knowing or how to shut that off can sometimes get very disturbing
Yeah,
because it's like everything's chill and then you're still up here and it's a natural energy, and not knowing how to come down naturally is can be dangerous, or can be a challenge. So things like meditation, prayer, all of those things are so important to a neurodivergent person because those are natural ways to, like, to come down and to just to be aware of what what's happening, where you're at, and just and be just be okay. So and you have to train yourself. You have to train your mind. You have to train your mind to understand that, because when the anxiety attack hits, I had my first panic attack when I was like 20, 21 years old. And like when you have when you have an anxiety attack, it feels like the world around you is crumbling. Everything feels like a risk.
yeah,
Everything seems like you can't trust it. And it could be, some people, don't come back from that, but you have to understand that it's not real. It's all just hypothetical in your mind, and you have to say words of affirmations that will bring you back to that reality. And that's what the album is about too, is saying those affirmational words. That's why it's specifically an ambient chant album.
mm,
There's not a whole lot of lyrics, but more so repetitive chanting to um to bring you back to that realization. So there's a song called, Can't Run From Love, and or Don't Run From Love. And it's so true, because so many people have anxiety about love.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so that's what it's all about, man. But yo, man, I am so thankful for you to bring me on here. I had a great time, man. This was awesome. I think we definitely need to do it again, and you know, let's keep spreading the word, man. The good news, man. So yes,
Definitely, man.
sir.
Definitely. For you, man, anything else to like, just I mean, we talked about a lot in this short time. I love how efficient we were, but just anything else just to give to the audience, anything else that you want to tell someone who, maybe has ADHD and is, has a newborn on the way, or someone who has ADHD and wants to make music. Any thoughts or any, tips for anybody like that?
Yeah. First and foremost, follow me on Instagram. I'm always dropping gems and tips, on Instagram. And just talking about the ADHD experience. But the best thing is like, get in community and know that you're not the only person that's experiencing this, that's going through it by yourself, that's, see the world in the way that you do. We are all unique, but we also have characteristics that make us community, that makes us, the same, and relate to each other. So get with those people that you can relate to, and that you can share things with, and you talk about what
Well, I think you're
about experiences, and sharing those things, because that's healing and help, self-help as well, just by sharing, things that you're going through, the things that you're seeing, and the things that you're experiencing. So yeah.
Appreciate that, Chris, man. Yeah, that's powerful, man. And I just want to say, dope having you on. I mean, I knew it would be
Yeah,
dope.
loved it.
I mean, there's so many things we talked about that people needed to hear. Definitely would love to do it again. But man, this is everyone who's been tuning in. So anyone who's like tuning in right now, who's listening on Apple or anywhere, anyone who's watching on YouTube, and everyone who's in live, appreciate you guys joining. Getting to hear us talk some ADHD, some mental health, doing this every single week. But Chris, thanks again for having you, man. I'm glad you're able to make it in the app, and man, we'll be talking very, very soon.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So,
Amen.
man,
Thanks for
you
having me
take care.
on. Be
Thank you, man. Stay
blessed.
blessed. Stay blessed.
Yes, sir.
Man, everyone, that was Chris Redding again. Grammy considered album. It's called Vision of Sounds. It's amazing. If you work from home, this album is just a must-have. Just I know a lot of people when we're working, especially if we have focus issues, especially anyone who is ADHD on the spectrum, trying to work with music on can be a challenge because sometimes maybe we turn on a song that we like too much. Now we're singing all the words, or maybe we turn on a song that is too sleepy, or whatever the case may be. But this album is like the perfect vibe for working, and it has enough words, not too many. I would just say give it a listen. But anyone else, even if you don't work from home, like if you just need a nice chill, like even I can just turn on the vibes. You hear it immediately. These songs grab you. Like it's called "Beat Me Up." But dude, amazing call. I mean, I'll stay on this a little bit longer. Anyone, Cassie, this is perfect timing, Cassie. I was gonna stay on for any questions. Cassie, yes, drop that question. Drop that question. For anyone, like for people who do have questions and you want to like join and like live and get to talk to me, or talk to us when we have guests, we won't be doing that on Instagram just yet. We'll be doing what is ADHD? Good question, Cassie. So ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder. So it's so many different types of ADHD. Very, very good question. Let me turn the music down. So many different types. There's inattentive, there's hyperactive. There's so many different types, but it's basically a disorder, a mental disorder. Like it affects your emotional regulation. Excuse me, emotional regulation. It can affect your executive functions, which is like just you being able to get off of your bed at the beginning of the day when it's time to get up. Like it affects the functions that make you do the stuff that makes you, take something from point A to point B. But it's something that affects people in a lot of different ways. So when it comes to what is it, I would assume you have like a maybe you've dealt with someone that you might think have it, or maybe you think you might have it. But usually when different people ask that question, they're looking for different things. So if you have a follow up, I would love to. But yes, it is a disorder that affects you mentally. It affects your emotions for some people. Your executive functioning, which is very very important. Um, all different things. Good question. But I would assume that you have a follow up. Usually people don't just say, "Hey, what is ADHD?" It's usually something else. CG official. So sorry, man. I was probably in deep convo with Chris when you put this, but I see you had a question, man. So because three of my class friends have it. Oh yeah. So Cassie, I figured you would ask him because you have a friend or you're worried about someone. If you want, I mean, I would just assume I want to jump off here in just a few minutes, but if you want some tips or some actionable advice for dealing with friends with ADHD, I always say keep good open communication. Usually people with ADHD are overthinkers, especially people who have been diagnosed. Before that, we're usually just um, we're overthinkers, but we don't really have any baseline to it. We're just kind of overthinking and we don't really know why. But once we're self aware, like it's a lot more overthinking because now we're thinking about everything that we do, right? Because now we're like, was that an ADHD thing? Was that an ADHD thing? But before that, it's just normal overthinking. But if you do have classmates, if you have friends with ADHD, easiest thing is just to keep an open line of communication. Remind them how you feel about them. A lot of people with ADHD, we often question if we're loved. We question if our disorder has finally driven you guys all the way. So I think a big thing for your friends who have ADHD, remind them you love them. Remind them when they do something that looks quirky or embarrassing. Remind them that you're all good to me. I don't judge. You're my friend. I love you. Remind them. I don't know how close your friends are, but I always say tell everyone that you love them. Thanks, Ethan. That's a very, 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 very insightful comment. Very, very, very. But on that, I'm not even gonna say what he said. On that note, I'll bid farewell to you guys on the stream today. It's been probably my favorite stream so far. A nice quick call. If anyone, we're about to sign off here in just a second, but if anyone out there, if you're a business owner, a content creator, someone who has a story to tell, and someone who needs help connecting with their audience, obviously starting a podcast can be daunting. It can be scary. I mean, hey, I don't judge, dude. I've told my fair share of jokes. I don't judge, but if I know starting a podcast isn't the most easy thing to do for people. I mean, it's easier than it looks, or it's easier than it sounds. But a lot of people think starting a podcast is really, really hard. But I mean, it does take a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. And if you are on the spectrum and you're trying to do other things at the same time, I don't recommend starting a podcast in the middle of all your things like I did, and I started two. So I'm recovering now. Both have simmered down. We have the Preem Pod was able to get featured in Now Entertainment. We're dropping our interview with Big Jungle. He just came off tour with, well, when we shot it, he had just came off tour with Sada Baby. It's been a little bit now. We're going to drop it soon. But we're just getting ready for a really good year, a really big year with these podcasts. So for you guys, anyone, business owners, content creators, anyone who's looking to monetize what they do online, a big thing you're going to need is credibility. And I just think a big thing with podcasts, it just really very, very quickly shows your audience that you're human and that you mean no harm if that's you, right? I think podcasts, you can go on a podcast and fake all you want, but I think it's way easier to fake in like candid pictures, videos that you get to edit, all those different things. But when you're on a podcast, they get to see you like live. Like I think seeing someone live says a lot. Whether you're faking or not, I can usually tell if you're up to no good. And usually I think that's the same for most people with good judges of character. So didn't mean to go off a long tangent, but anyone, again, I'll say this before we jump off. If you are a business owner, if you're a content creator, if you're looking to connect with your audience online, again, you guys can reach out to us via our bio at the Hyperactive Hustler on Instagram. Just DM us guests, comments on any of our posts, the word guest, and we'll get you some info on how you could be featured, on how you can sit down and talk to me for 30 minutes to 90 minutes. Tomorrow, we'll actually be talking with Coach Pick Me. She's going viral. Like, she has a bunch of viral reels right now. Just really all she does is affirm men. Just she kind of is pro men's mental health, holding women accountable. A lot of people take her stuff the wrong way because a lot of girls are projecting the bad guys that they chosen on her. So whenever she says to do all these nice things for your guy, in their head they think my guy sucks, so I'm not going to do that. But obviously, and from just our brief conversation, I understand that she's talking about the guys who deserve this type of thing, right? But yes, we'll be talking with Coach Pick Me tomorrow. We'll be kind of diving into men's mental health, relationships, why men don't really open up, get really deep into those uncomfortable conversations, and not try to bash anyone, but try to give actionable feedback to both sides. And we want to walk away from that conversation tomorrow, validating both sides, not just validating men, not just validating women. We want to be able to validate both sides and give both sides actionable feedback to take back and use in their relationships, right? A lot of people just say, if they're doing this, just leave them. Like, if you've chosen somebody and you love them and, it seems like they have, some type of love. I mean, they love you back and they're willing to, if you guys are both willing to work, then I think it's worth it to, try to find the tools, to take that to, even something better. So if you guys, men's mental health, if anyone wants to tune in tomorrow, that's what we're talking about. And then on Saturday, I'm so excited for this episode. The hyperactive hustler will be sitting down remotely with the overthinking Hooper. If you haven't seen his videos, man, you're living under a rock, or maybe you just don't follow sports. Because I believe if you follow any sports pages, you eventually get shown some of his videos. But basically, he takes his. I'm assuming that he takes his tripod, he takes his camera, and he sets up in the craziest places. I mean, if you go to his page, I've seen him set up. I think in this one video, he had his phone set up in like he was on the freeway and he had his phone set up maybe in like one of the billboard things because his phone was like looking like very high, and all we see is him dribbling, like just going crazy on the freeway. And he kind of just found his niche and found his lane with that. Like the beginning of his videos, it started off as all hate, just everyone was just saying, get a job, this is stupid, what are you doing, why are you doing this? And now if you look at his last few posts, he's finally hit that barrier of everyone is like, feeling it. And since the beginning, I've always thought it was like just super cool. He's taking the basketball and he's doing something he loves, and he's going out and he's recording it. Like people in social media will hate you for sneezing nowadays, but we're sitting down and we're talking with him. He doesn't show his face in any of his videos, so he won't be showing his face when he comes on the pod. But we'll get to hear about these videos and these viral videos and the things that he does and kind of dive more into that. So today we talked with Chris Redding, Grammy considered neurodivergent artist, and it just went amazing. And I can't wait for this to drop for you guys tomorrow. This is a quick recap for you guys. Tomorrow we're talking with at Coach Pick Me. Her name is, let me not butcher her name. Let me make sure. I know it has a hyphen or it has a thingy. It has a tilde in it or something. Trish Renee. I think it's Trish Renee. Don't please, Trish. I hope I pronounced that right. But we'll be talking with Trish Renee tomorrow. Her Instagram is at Coach Pick Me. Again, talking men's mental health and just encouraging women to, also, just be conscious of men's mental health. We're not telling anyone to try harder than the other side, but everyone needs to be conscious of the other side, right? When we talk about men's mental health, a lot of people wonder, like, why are you just, focusing on men? It's just because nowadays we have been, it seems like we've been conditioned to think that men shouldn't have feelings or that we don't have feelings. So that causes, just a crazy amount of different things that happen, because of that. So tomorrow we'll be talking more about that. And then on Saturday, guys, we're sitting down again with the hyperactive. No, that's us. I'll be sitting down. The hyperactive hustler will be connecting with the overthinking Hooper and getting some insights on how does he create these videos? Where did this, stem from, and what's next for him? So that's been episode something. I'm not going to say episode. I've learned from making my other podcast that you should not say the episodes that you're on because you never know what'll happen in post. So this has been another episode of the Hyperactive Hustler. Appreciate everyone who's tuned in on Instagram Live and who's tuned in on Circle. We'll be seeing you guys next week.